Okay, today let's talk about these Freewell ND filters. This is the mega pack, has 14 lenses on there for the Osmo Pocket 3, this right here. And pretty much think about it this way. They're sunglasses for your camera. That's probably the easiest way that I could explain it to you. And why would you need that? Well, because for that cinematic look, if you physically take your hand, do this with me now, you just wave it in front of you and look at your hand, there's a blur there. Like it's not super sharp. You see this blur in your hand as you wave it around. Well, the same thing happens in video is that you want that natural motion blur, because oftentimes if you don't have that natural motion blur, it just doesn't look authentic and real as our eyes perceive them. This natural motion blur that we see with our hands is natural to our eyes. So we want that to look as natural as possible, giving it that cinematic look. So to achieve this cinematic motion blur, there are 3 things to look at. 1, the aperture, 2, the frames per second, and 3, the shutter speed. The Osmo Pocket 3 boasts a 1-inch sensor, which is great for a compact camera like this. And in my opinion, the advantage of that is that it performs better in low light shooting. But the lens on here is a 20mm f2 aperture. There's no adjusting the aperture. So as we talked about those 3 things, 1, your aperture is stuck at f2, which is pretty wide open, letting in a lot of light, but you do get that depth of field from that f2. So that's pretty good. Okay, I'm turning this on. We're gonna talk about frames per second. Okay, so we're in video mode. You can see the video icon there. We'll tap on 4K 24. We'll swipe down from the bottom, and we're shooting right now at 4K 24 frames per second. So the 180 rule is if you're at 24 frames per second, you wanna double that for your shutter speed. So we're set there at 4K 24, swiping from the right side, and we go to exposure. And so now our shutter speed is set to 1/50. So that's double the frame rate. Some cameras don't have an even number when you're shooting 24 frames per second, because double that would be 48. So you go with 50 as your next best option. So now what happens here is our aperture is locked. We can't control that. That's a f2. 2, our frame rate is 24 frames per second. That's what we want. But to double that is at 1/50, giving us that locked shutter speed. So everything's kind of stuck at this mode. So the lighting looks great in here right now, but if we go outside, it gets really bright and it blows everything out. My shutter speed's out 1/50, and my aperture is wide open at 2. So you'll see it's all blown out here. So as you can see, it's blown out. All the settings are set where we want them to be. Now that's where these ND filters come in from Freewell. Okay, the way that we get these filters to work is we could just take one, and you'll notice right here it says ND64. The way this works is that it just magnets onto the front. And there we go. Now the image is a little darker, but it's not adjusting brightness and darkness in the video because I've locked it in. I would recommend removing the filter on there before closing it up and putting it back in here and just carrying everything in the filter case. It looks like it somewhat does fit, but it does hit right there if it's trying to close that way. So I'd recommend removing the filter and putting it back in the case before you shut down. That way you could see this fully rotate. So let's talk about the filters that are in here. We have ND8. It has a little writing on the side here. I don't know if you can see it from there, but there's a little writing on the side that shows you which filter it is. So ND8, 16, 32, 64. And the higher the number goes, which means the darker it gets in type of lens. 128, 256, and ND 1000, which is great for time lapses because you get a lot of variable lighting if there's clouds. So in my opinion, with editing video and shooting video, is that it's better to shoot a little darker because it's easier to brighten an image. But if you have blown out highlights, you lose a lot of information there. You can't actually make things darker if they're like fully blown out. So let's look at how this looks with a couple of different filters on there. I'm gonna put them all on here. I'm gonna put all the ND filters on here just to show us how it looks. So this one right here is pretty cool, CPL, it means circular polarizer. And what that is that if you're getting a lot of glare from like a windshield or water, you throw this on there and it cuts right through the glare. That's why you'll see polarizing glasses as well. So at the bottom here, we have ND8, ND16, and ND32, which you already have those ND filters, but these are actually neutral density filters as you have before, but these ones have a polarizer built in on there. Okay, so again, I have the fixed scenario on here. Well, on here we have the ND64 lens here. This is the non-polarizer version, and you can see that there's the glare right there from the water. And what the circular polarizer ND filter is going to do for us is it's going to reduce that glare that you're seeing a lot of right here. And then down on this row, you have ND8, 16, 32, and 64. But the difference from these ones is that these have built-in polarizers on there. So Those can cut back the glare if you want them on there as well. And you adjust that by turning this wheel. So if you're wondering if you can stack these, I stacked this polarizer on just a standard 64, and it doesn't quite sit on there, so you can't really stack those. And then last but not least are these two at the bottom. You have a mist at 1/4 and an LPR. So the mist, why would you need this? Well, what happens with smaller cameras, especially with smartphones, you'll see this in iPhone footage, is that the default image is usually too sharp, especially with smaller cameras. You get that just because it's trying to make up for the footage, it's trying to make it better, but sometimes it's not better. And if you want to match with other cameras you have, you throw on this mist filter there, and it softens those edges up a little more. Okay, this is how the image looks with nothing on there. There's no filter, there's no lens. This is how it looks standard. Normal color. I don't have any special adjustments. I'm not at 24 frames per second anymore. I'm not really focused on that blur. But this is how it looks standard. And now I want to show you how it looks like with the mist filter. And you'll see in side-by-side comparison how the mist filter kind of softens everything up around my face. It's not so sharp. Because actually I think that's the only thing that's really in focus out here is my face. But you'll see that mist filter kind of gives it more of a softer feel to it without you having to do it digitally. This is a natural mist. And this last one right here is the LPR filter. And what this is, it's for light pollution reduction. And what this does is that it reduces, certain wavelengths of light. And if you're getting sky glow, this filter will help with that as well. So that is the Mega Pack from Freewell. Go check it out. I'll have a link in the description for you to check out there. This Mega Pack will for sure elevate your game with filmmaking with the Osmo Pocket 3, so go check that out. If you found value in this video, please let me know by hitting that like or subscribe button or share this with your friends. Leave a comment in the comments below and chat amongst yourselves to talk more about ND filters, Osmo Pocket 3, and any other cool things that we're talking about on this channel. So thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.